Well, here we are on a Sunday morning. It's coffee with Rayo and Cioffi, or if you prefer, coffee with Cioffi and Rayo on the Joe and Joe Cioffi show, or if you prefer, tea with Cioffi and Rayo, or tea with Rayo and Cioffi. Did I
Whatever.
cover? Did I ever cover? Did I cover all the combinations this morning?
You covered all bases.
Uh,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely. So how are you now that we're all back on a much better connectivity and internet situation?
Yeah, the issue was what I had suspected, which was they were slowing the data down stream down for whatever reason, and in the system, and then there was yesterday morning early there was some kind of system wide outage up here. So whatever was going on was probably starting to be symptomatic on Thursday. I It's been fine, knock on wood, ever since. No issues. The occasional hiccup, but uh, when something like this happens technically, and you start to take apart the stuff on your end, Joe. You know how frustrating it is. It's like you're basically it's a long, long process of elimination, and you get to a point. I know I do. I get to a point sometimes thinking it's never going to get fixed ever again, and lo and behold, it winds up solving itself.
Lovely. So we're all back together, and nothing really has changed. We had our big rainstorm as anticipated yesterday, and now it looks like it's going to be ho hum weather for the next 5, 6, 7 days.
Very quiet. Well, up until next weekend, very quiet. Maybe we'll see. Very quiet nationwide. Joe, there really isn't much going on. It hasn't been from the standpoint of severity. There's always weather going on. I remember somebody once took me to the woodshed for saying that the weather was nothing was happening. There's always something happening. Yeah, all right, you get what I mean.
Yes.
Um, but if I'm going to bring up the watches and warnings map this morning, and I mean it's minimal stuff here. You've got a few winter weather, and it's been like this for days, by the way. You've got a few winter weather advisories up in the northern one, two, three, four, five, six counties in Maine. And well, there's a shocker there. And you've got some winter weather advisories covering most of North Dakota and a few in western Minnesota. Three counties in Montana under a winter weather advisory. We have looks like we have dense fog advisories for western Iowa and um, northwestern Utah, and that's it. It's it's just so silent. It really is.
This would be a great day for the Super Bowl. No travel problems for most people from coast to coast for the most part. But of course, the Super Bowl is next Sunday, and next Sunday might be the only time in the next 7 days where we'll have some weather to talk about. Maybe.
Right. Well, we'll see about that. Just by the way, I see everybody's on the chat this morning, which is a nice thing. So good morning to everybody, and I hope you are enjoying your coffee, your tea, your chocolate caliente, whatever it is you're having on this Sunday. Yeah, this whole week, Joe, really, this whole week ahead, very, very quiet. It's kind of unusual in the winter to see it sort of coast to coast this way. And it's also interesting that it times out this next week and the week that follows. It really, we're kind of right smack in the middle of astronomical winter here. And I got the satellite up, and there's energy running around here and there, but there's nothing really substantial. Yesterday's storm system is up. The upper low is north of Lake Huron. When you consider the fact, by the way, that that was modeled originally to be off the East Coast, east of New Jersey and south of southern New England, and the low is up northern Lake Huron. Okay, and then you also start to see another system moving in the Pacific Northwest. There's a little action in the Western Gulf. This week, we're probably going to see a couple of weak lows move across the Gulf and basically fall apart. So it's a snooze fest.
That's it. That's it. By the way, winter, the astronomical winter, the middle of astronomical winter. I went back over my notes. 11:04 a.m. on February the 4th. So a week from Tuesday at 11:04 in the morning will mark the moment of the midpoint between the winter solstice and the vernal equinox, halfway point. Of course, we're already halfway, more than halfway done with meteorological winter, which officially is on the 15th of January. So there you go. Maybe the
And
16th because this year's a leap year.
and of course, in honor of Halfway Day, which is on Tuesday, February 4th, at what time?
11:04 a.m.
All right, so at 2 p.m. on that day, we will be celebrating Halfway Day by appearing in public. We will be at the Sachem Library in Holbrook, New York, on Long Island, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you can get an excuse to get out of work early, you can not only avoid rush hour, but then you can come by the Sachem Library. It will be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday. I will not be live streaming that, by the way. I'll do it. We'll do our regular live stream at night. I'm just gonna take it easy and not over stress myself with trying to get connectivity issues resolved while I'm doing the library talk. So that'll be at the Sachem Library in Holbrook, 2 o'clock on Tuesday, February the 4th. So there's your satellite, Joe. Here's your radar. Just going to punch that up here. Actually, quite a bit of rain moving along in the Gulf states today, in southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and Alabama. That's this first lead Gulf wave that's moving out that's going to weaken. Most of that rain is going to fall apart before it makes it even into the southeast or Florida. In the meantime, in the northeast, we've got a little precip going on up in northern Maine. We've got some patchy precip rain and snow showers in upstate New York along I-90 on one end, on the eastern end, and also on the western end around Buffalo at the moment. Otherwise, radars are quiet there, and some action in the northwest with snow moving into parts of Idaho. Nothing too crazy here. Snow and rain, and we've got snow and rain moving across California from north to south inland, but again, not amounting to too much, and a few showers up in the Pacific Northwest. And that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Quiet. Very quiet.
So before I pull up the models, let me just come back to us full screen. Hang on, you're here somewhere. I lost you. There you go. No, I mean I lost your. I had the image switched off. So we're at the point now where we're at the end of January. We're just about at the end of January, and I've always been a firm believer in whatever the trend being your friend. So you get into a pattern, whatever that pattern is, it takes you a while to sort of figure it out. Usually you have it figured out by this time in January, and the trend being your friend, it's in my view, I think what we got is what we got. Whether there's a pattern change down the road, I don't know, but I have to just, I'm starting to really think at this point, even though there is the possibility of something happening next weekend, one of the things that I'm having a real tough time with is the amount of cold air. There really isn't a lot of cold air around. It's at best you can say about this week is that it's going to be seasonal. Okay, maybe it'll be colder aloft, but it's going to be seasonal at the low levels. And we're talking about a situation where everything has to time out perfectly, and you have to get the dynamics to work out well. I'm starting to wonder, Joe, whether it's going to be a real struggle for the rest of the winter, at least for the urban corridor of I-95. That it's going to be a real struggle to put down any kind of accumulating snow at all. And I'm talking about an inch or two or more. I'm not talking about flurries running around. But as far as accumulating snow, I'm really starting to wonder whether that's going to happen at all.
Well, I did a study a couple of days ago and posted it on my Facebook page, Joe Ray Weather, about where we are right now in terms of snowfall at Central Park. And this sounds like almost a study that Scott Briller would be interested in, our guy with statistics. And I don't know if he's on. I didn't see his name on the chat board here. He may be on. He might be interested in this. But what I did was a couple of days ago, I went to the Upton, New York National Weather Service Forecast Office website,
Right.
pulled up the statistics for snow per month going, and they go all the way back to 1869. My goodness, 150 years worth of records. And I said, okay, so far, and it's very likely that we're not going to see much more, if any, snow at Central Park from now through the end of this month. We have 4.8 inches of snow that we have accumulated thus far to this point at Central Park. So I said, okay, let's take a look and see all of the years where we had up to 4.8 inches of snow by the end of January or the beginning of February, and see where the rest of those winters ended up in terms of snowfall. And it turns out that there were 27 other winters going back to 1869 at Central Park or in New York City. I don't know if they measured at Central Park back in the 1860s and 70s, but in any case, 1869 was when all of this began. 4.8 inches to the end of January, 27 other cases like that. And it's interesting to note that in 25 out of the 27 cases, we had below normal snowfall at Central Park. And in many of those cases, Joe, snowfalls of less than 20 inches for the winter. And in 6 out of those 27 cases, snowfalls that didn't even reach 10 inches. The only 2 cases out of the 27 where we ended up above normal in terms of snowfall were, let me just get my little crib note page here. It was 1895-96, 3.3 inches at the beginning of February of 1896. We ended up with 46.3 inches. You talk about a backloaded winter. That was one case. And the other case, 1913-1914, 1.6 inches of snow by the end of January. We ended up that winter with 40.5 inches. So in other words, the second half of the winter in those 2 winters, and there were only 2 out of 27, those 2 winters really, the nature, old man winter dumped on us
Right.
February, March, and April.
Well, that must have been an absolutely radical. You probably went. You had an absolutely radical pattern change from maybe something resembling what we have now to something that's completely favorable for snow up the I-95 corridor, and for snow lovers at the moment, just not seeing anything that really, really inspires as far as changing things around. The models. I've been looking carefully at the long range for as I do. I try to look every day and spend a little bit of time on it. And one thing I've noticed, Joe, in the last few weeks, the perpetual the pattern gets better after day 10 or day 12 or day 13 on every single run. It never, ever advances forward. And in fact, when I was looking at the 6Z run, it was god awful. I mean, it was just an absolutely god awful look up. Be talking about how the vortexes, the polar vortex or vortices are all, because there's several of them, they were all kind of lined up across the Arctic region. Well, guess what? They stay lined up across the Arctic region for the next 2 weeks. So there's no way to get some other than marginal cold air. There's really not a whole lot here that you have to work with. It's fine and dandy. The southern part of the southern part of the flow is wonderful. You're sending these weather systems along, and you're seeing some of these getting loaded up with some moisture and certainly some opportunities. But if you don't have any kind of even a minor connection to some colder air somewhere coming down from the north, it's going to be, at least for the coastal areas, it's going to be mostly rain, in the way from what I'm seeing anyhow. And by the way, Scott did leave me since 1869. Joe, you Central Park, I think they used to measure down in the Battery, maybe in the
Right.
80s, and then they moved it up. So 1869 Central Park, since 1869, 40 Februaries with at least, this is on the other side of the equation, 40 Februaries with at least a foot of snow for the month, which works out to roughly about 1 out of 4. And February snow average is around 9.5 inches. So your two snowiest months are January and February. So we've already lost the first half. So let's see what happens for the second half. So I yapped up enough here so we can look at the new GFS, which is out. Shall we take a look at this?
Let us peruse the GFS.
Okay. So one of the things that I've been talking about, Joe, on some of the stuff I've written the last couple of days with respect to next weekend, and of course, these days you can't have a model run without it instantly appearing on social media. So I don't think it's anybody's surprise if I said that some of these models were showing a rather strong storm along the East Coast for next weekend. It's all about the timing of the two flows that are involved. There are short waves that are running around all over the place, and the flow is definitely split here. If you look carefully at this upper air that I've put up, you have a flow across southern Canada. There's actually a little bit of an upper high that is sitting up north of Lake Superior, and then you have the southern part of the jet that is shooting shortwave troughs along. We have a couple of them moving across the Gulf states that are not going to amount to much this week, but then we have a stronger one that is dropping down, and that's this one back here in the Rockies. By the time we get to Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, that drops down into Texas, and then you also have a shortwave in the north that's going to try to time out some kind of a phase. And on the new, I have not looked at the new run, Joe. I'm just looking now. So I can already tell you that it's probably going to be somewhat different than the prior run because we do have an upper low cutting off near Louisville, Kentucky. Okay. And it looks like we have a south-southwest flow here up the East Coast. I'm wondering if when I switch to the surface, and we'll have a revelation party here in a moment, when I switch to the surface. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I brought it up full screen. And the guys in the chat, everybody in the chat must be screaming, "The maps! The maps!" Sorry about that. It's Sunday morning, and I'm I'm a little slow on the uptake. So let's run this back. Let me just once again. This is today. This is our upper air map for today. When we move into Wednesday, you see the flow is, again, it's split. You've got part of this flow that moves across southern Canada. Your Arctic stuff is all locked up here. There's no connection bringing that cold air southward. You've got the southern part of the jet remaining fairly active, shortwave, moving across the Gulf states. There's one moving across now. There's another one that's moving across in midweek. And this one back here, this is one for next weekend. So what the models have been struggling with is with all these short waves running around both in the south and in the north, timing and phasing. Does the north phase with the south? Does it not phase with the south? Does the north overwhelm and suppress the south, or does the south just kind of lift up into one giant arm of a storm system that moves up phased so far west that you take a low up the west side of the Appalachians? And otherwise, we've been seeing models showing rather deep lows moving up the East Coast, east of New Jersey and south of Cape Cod. Okay, so this is where we wind up, and this is for Saturday night is the last frame that I have in here. So I'm going to now we'll have the reveal party here.
I have on my end, Joe. I'm looking at the height, the 500 height anomaly, and I'm all the way out to 12Z on Sunday, next Sunday, the 26th.
Okay, so
What am I doing here? That's not the 26th.
Yeah, you started with the negative one.
Oh no, no, okay. So I'm out to Sunday, February 2nd, next Sunday morning.
Okay. Well, I've got the surface map now, so I'm going to roll through it. Go ahead.
No, they have a digging shortwave. It drops straight on down through Minnesota on Friday night and digs for all it's worth until it's finally like right along the mid-Atlantic coastline near Hatteras by Sunday morning. So obviously, if there's any kind of surface reflection of this. It probably will be deepening very rapidly
Right.
somewhere along the coast, either late Saturday or Sunday morning.
Well, we have the surface low moving across the Gulf of Mexico, south of New Orleans, comes in along the Florida Panhandle as a 1,006 low, and then by Saturday afternoon, by Saturday morning, it's 1,002 near Charleston. You're actually seeing a little bit of blue snow showing up in western Virginia and eastern West Virginia, so that's obviously elevation driven. And a bit of an expanding area of blue with a 995 low, just I would say right on the where the Outer Banks make that bend at Hatteras. Well, if you go straight north to the end to the northernmost part of the Outer Banks, so it's basically east of Elizabeth City, but on the coast, the 993 low
Three,
there.
993, yeah.
So here we go. So let's see what the next one brings. Um, Up there, you have a 983 low east of east of the Delmarva Peninsula, south of Long Island. Looks like the rain snow line is probably right along or just north and west of I-95. If you, but here's the thing, Joe. If you look at the upper air, I mean, you look at this, you're seeing rain and snow mixed together. So that's telling you that there's not a whole, I mean, obviously there's not a whole lot of cold air to work with here.
Right.
What cold air we have is probably of what you would refer to as the dirty variety,
Yes.
with a dirty high. So you better have really intense dynamics in order to generate some heavy snow out of this. Now I'm going to go to Sunday at next Sunday at 1 a.m.
Pressure really falling around. We're talking about a 21 millibar drop in pressure over a span of just 12 hours. If you take this at face value.
Okay, and it's down to a 971 low
Yeah.
by 6Z. It's at 38.8 and roughly 39. Let's just round it off. So roughly at about 39 and about 70 and a half. And at this point, the dynamics are coming into play. The very cold air aloft, probably some good vertical motion. You're getting some dynamic cooling. You see a changeover to snow. That's what I think it's going to wind up being, Joe, for many areas from, say, central New Jersey north and east. This may wind up being starts as rain, changes to snow, and depending on the dynamics and where the upper low is and everything else, you could wind up with a fairly reasonable accumulating snowfall, or you could just wind up with a rain to sleet to ends as some light snow or flurries and done. And then, of course, it's a 63 low, well to the east southeast of Cape Cod by Sunday morning, and this is at roughly 40, 41 and about 67.
Yeah. All right. Well, the GFS has been suggesting something along the eastern seaboard. Sometimes they push it a little inland and pass it over us or off to the north and west. Sometimes they actually shift it south and we just get a glancing blow. So, but what it is red flagging, at least from this vantage point, almost a week away, is some kind of system that's coming along the eastern part of the country for next weekend. The other models are not exactly in lockstep, but I guess you could say that if there's anything that's going to break this lull, if you will, that we'll have through much of this week, it'll be coming our way next weekend.
Yeah, the GFS has been actually relatively consistent for the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 runs now. I put up the upper air for next Friday just to illustrate what the problem is, and and what you're going to be seeing, I think, going forward for the rest of the next number of model runs is you're going to see the models basically start to tighten up a little bit on what the outcome is. And the problem is there's short waves running around all over the place here, and every model run is, given that we're still a week away, there's still a tremendous amount of variability that could happen in terms of how these short waves play out and how they move across. So you start to see model runs timing things differently. And here's an example for Friday, where you've actually got 3 shortwaves in play, 4 shortwaves in play here on Friday. With again, the timing issues with regards to the southern part of this split, and then you've got the northern part that's doing its thing, is what models are wrestling with, and that's why you'll see the GFS do one thing and the European uh, do another, like they did on last night, or as they did during the day yesterday. They both seemed to be in locks. They were both pretty much in lockstep with each other. And I'm going to bring the European up now
Right.
from last night. And Joe, when you look at what the European did last night, it just completely. I mean, take a look. If you've got it in front of you, be able to pull it up. Look at the European upper air from last night. It completely squashes the whole southern system. It's gone. The northern system just basically overwhelms, and the European last night did absolutely nothing with this at
Right.
all.
Right. You're right. It's you talk about squashed.
Yeah, look at it at 144, okay, and then run it forward to
Well, first of all,
192.
at 144 on the we're looking now at the height and anomaly map on the European from last night, the 0Z, and there you have a positively tilted shortwave over Texas, and so you have to say to yourself, when is the darn thing going to pivot around and become negative? And really, that upper airflow coming down across the Great Lakes just simply, as you just said, squashes it. It never really gets a chance to rev up and do anything. That northern stream system is the one that takes over big time by the time we get to late Sunday and Sunday evening, Super Bowl Sunday, I might add.
There's a big upper low north of Lake Winnipeg, Joe, and when you run it forward, it just it starts screaming southeastward toward James Bay and into southeastern Canada. It just basically overwhelms everything in the eastern part of the United States. Not only is this no phase, but there's your the European, what's left of the southern stream system, as this little shortwave trough that's off the Florida coast. Now that doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that it's right. And when you go back to yesterday's day run, you had a totally different look here. It has had a much more wrapped up system in South Carolina, cutting off, and then the north came down and just sort of phased with it as it pulled it up to the northeast. I'm going to be curious. Obviously, all of us are going to be relatively curious to see what the outcome is going to be on today's run, which doesn't start for another couple of hours. By the way, Joe, I don't know if we mentioned this the other night. I know I meant to, as I wrote it down on my things to mention before I forget, and I forgot to look at the list. So they did an upgrade on the Canadian model, which I've brought up now.
Really?
Yes, they did a full system upgrade, and what's more interesting is on its recent, every couple of months they do these verification tests between the global models to see which one performed the best, and the European outscored the GFS and the Canadian model fairly handily. But for the first time before the upgrade, the Canadian model actually beat the GFS in its verification scores.
Huh.
So it'll
Well,
be.
didn't they update try and do an update back several years ago of the Canadian model?
I believe that might have been the first time, the first one. There hasn't been one since.
Yeah.
But I got the new one is out to 108 hours. So as Joe and I are more than willing to give the Canadian an opportunity to perform, okay,
Yeah.
so to speak, and so in the interest of kind of what's the word? What's the phrase I'm looking for here? Uh, uh, Equal opportunity of all the models, kind of thing. Just
Fair and
give a
balanced.
fair. Oh, there you go, a fair and balanced look at everything. So here is the Canadian. Same idea with the weather system moving across in the southern stream and out in the Gulf, and then we are left with Thursday evening, where we don't really see any signs of, one of the things the Canadian Joe has been showing, that the system for the late week and next weekend is basically a non-event. and you do see the short wave on the upper air. It's only out to 108 hours. That extends down from West Kansas into West Texas and Mexico. You also can see the noise in the northern stream. Looks like the Canadian looks more like the GFS than it does the European. So,
Yep.
I mean, if that's and by the way, the icon model, for those of you who are interested, has been um, also unusually consistent in its runs, showing this system for next weekend running up the East Coast. Uh, Today's run did the same. It's actually a little bit further to the east on today's run, but again, the issue of cold air is going to be there, and the amount of cold air, and I'm just not, I'm not 100% convinced unless this winds up being some sort of big powerhouse, Joe. I'm going to lean to the idea that it's going to be mostly rain with maybe a little bit of sleet and snow in the end for the immediate coast, and that you're going to have to go a fair distance inland to get any snow out of it. That would be my early impression of this.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Still a week away. A lot of flips, a lot of flops, a lot of things can happen. I even said yesterday on Facebook um, that already there were rumblings on social media and the internet about the big winter storm Super Bowl weekend. But again, it's still about a week away, and we'll see. We'll see how all plays out, especially as we get closer in. Get within 72 hours, I think then we can start focusing on specifics. But right now, it's anybody's game as far as what may happen next week.
I'm just leading to the idea of the trend being your friend, and I just, you know, I usually tend to be a bit more bullish about these things. So perhaps we can be cynical and say that if Cioffi's throwing in the towel, it must be time to get excited. But I'm just, I don't know. If I could have seen a few examples during the month of January where we wound up getting something, I'm not overly optimistic right now in terms of for snow lovers outcome. Anyhow, also I want to just point out, I just want to go back to the upper air for a moment here and go to the GFS from last night because I want to show everybody this that I mentioned this earlier. Let's go to the 6C. Okay, so in terms of the long range, there we go. Knock on wood, by the way, 32 minutes in and no interruption to the live stream, Mr. Rayo.
Lovely.
So take a look. Take a look at this hemispheric view that I have up here. This is the view next Saturday. And the one thing that I've been talking, mentioning every night is the fact that you've got, this flow that's locked up, these the polar vortex being locked up way up in Canada. Okay. This run last night was particularly depressing for snow lovers, in my opinion, because when you go out to the end of the forecast period, absolutely nothing has changed here. You have your polar vortex pretty much. This is how it was on day 5 to day 6 to day 7. This is the look that I drew off the map by hand, and now take a look at what it's going to look like. Supposedly 16 days from now, it's even more locked up in the Arctic regions. Maybe you get a little bleed through down into southeastern Canada and puts us on the edge. So you got this active jet stream to the south, but darn it, it's more of the same. And at this point, we're at February 11th.
Yep. I'm just following you on my own screen here, and you're right. It's looks like it's fairly. Oh, now my wife kicked chiming in with Joe C's internet went out and computer crashed too.
Correct.
Timothy Belton. I didn't do anything this time, Christopher. I was letting Brandon learn the rope. Oh, wait a minute. Are we back?
And we might be. I restarted the stream. I just have to get to the board. Hang on.
I was letting Brandon learn the rope.
I should have never opened my big mouth.
It's your
Seriously?
fault, Cioffi.
It
It's your.
is. I don't know what happened. It just as if it just not only did the internet just like die, but Also, my computer just completely froze. Well, that was nice of YouTube. At least the oh, it's telling me I have an excellent connection. Okay. Well, I don't know about excellent. Uh, I prefer to have a connection somewhere to be able to keep these things from happening to help me out. Yes, we are back on, believe it or not.
Tell your family, tell your friends, we're back.
Yes. So, look, uh, the bottom line is the bottom line, and that is, oh, we're wrapped back on again. Isn't this fun, Mr. Rayo? Hang on, there you go. I've got system up here on the North Shore. It is ridiculous. Okay, I should, this is, you know, for God's sake, this is like a third world existence. I can't have perfect wireless for.
Now you're beginning to quote your old friend Bob Grant. We're heading for a third world, then, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, get off my phone.
Get off my internet.
Get off my internet, you old bag. Oh God, the world we live in. All right, so what are you up to for the rest of today? And then we'll just say goodbye.
I have absolutely nothing planned for the moment.
Really?
I have nothing. My wife, I'm sure, will have something for me to do later, but right now I'm wide open.
Well, I think what I'm going to do is I have it's a really nice day. We've got a lot of sun, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to the supermarket, which is about a mile and a half from here. So I'm going to walk it and pick up a few odds and ends. Want to get some Cara oranges, which are in season right now, Mr. Rayo. You know what a big.
They don't have them up here.
Siri, you should be able to find them. Come on, you can't. They don't have them at the like Trader Joe's or Stop and Shop or any of those same places.
My wife is watching this, so I will send her on a hunt when she goes shopping this week to look for the Caras.
Because
you were my supplier. You were right across the desk from me.
the Caras at the Stop and Shop here are ginormous, and unlike navel oranges, sometimes when they buy the big ones, they tend to be really dry on the inside. These Caras were so incredibly sweet and juicy, and I got to get some more. And there's some pretty good nectarines that they bring up from South America now. Years ago, the import products that they used to bring up in the wintertime from South America weren't really all that good. They were kind of hard and not that juicy. But they've gotten much better over the years, and the nectarines that I've been picking up the last couple of weeks have been pretty good. So that's my goal for the day, is to run out and get some fruits and maybe a few vegetables, and perhaps have a steak dinner for later today.
Oh, I'll be right over.
Yeah, I got two rib steaks, 1.5 inches thick, all ready to go. So, and they're big. They're nice size steaks.
Now bring Fred Mertz over, and you can have a 7-layer cake with it after.
Yes, with gobs of frosting.
Gobs of frosting, 7 layers thick.
Yes, it's all right in there. I mixed them all together when I baked the cake. Yeah. All right. So look, we'll regular time tomorrow, 7:00 Eastern.
And should we say something quickly about our new our Joe and Joe weather weenie?
Oh yeah, you know what? Let me bring it up on Facebook. Brandon Doherty set this up yesterday, a couple of days ago. So just so you're aware, folks. Wait, let me get the. Let me find it here. Oh God.
I put it on both of my Facebook pages, my professional and my not so professional page.
Right. Okay, so I'll bring it up on the screen, and you can go ahead and tell everybody where it is. Hang on. Here I am, getting slower and slower on the uptake every day, Joseph. Come on.
Was Brendan on right now, or maybe he's not?
I don't think he is.
I see Leon. Leon is on. Good morning to you, Leon, out on the island of Long, and Tim Veltman, of course. I would bet Tim Veltman. I would have to say this about Tim. We could go on unannounced at like 2:30 in the morning,
Yeah,
and would probably be the first one to log on or to hit the chat screen. Tim is always on no matter where we are, where we go, what we do.
he takes a break every once in a while.
Every once in a while. And Chuck Cardillo, Joe, you're getting me hungry. Yeah, well,
Here we go. I got the. Hang on a second. Took me a while to find it. Sorry about that. But here it is. Move it to the top. Up. Hold on, Joe.
yes.
I'm just a mess right now. I'm very tired.
Daniel Fitzsimmons, News 12, Joe Rayo. And Leon Pravinsky, Joe, good morning to Joe Rayo. Actually, yeah.
There we are. The Joe and Joe show. This is the official. It's called the. Um, I'm trying to get this darn thing to load.
Hey,
Yeah, there it is. It's
I like that
the
picture.
Joe and Joe Weather Weenie Fan Club page.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great picture of us. Don't you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah.
I always like that picture. You sitting at your desk working, me kind of just like
Fooling
there
around.
on the side, letting
Yeah.
you work in the days where when we were both
And
employed.
take a close look at my tie. We know this was taken sometime around the Christmas season because I'm wearing you can see it's a black tie, and if you look really carefully, there's Tweety wearing a red Santa Claus hat. It's my Looney Tunes Christmas or holiday tie.
Yeah, I can't make it any bigger than it already is, unfortunately. But yeah, now you got some very cool ties. I have my Bugs Bunny Warner Brothers ties running around as well, hanging up in the closet somewhere.
Yes, sir.
Oh God. Okay, so I guess we're done here. Oh, now all of a sudden, look at what happens, Joe. We go off the air. We actually had come with a system crash. We got more people on now than we did before.
Ah!
I guess they're all sitting around waiting to see if we lose the signal again. Oh well. All right, so let's call it a day. It's almost noontime on Sunday, so we can go out and spend some time in this nice weather.
You can watch at 3 o'clock this afternoon on Channel 7, the Pro Bowl. My heart is beating rapidly.
Oh yeah,
The
okay.
the Pro Bowl.
I don't do the Pro Bowl. I barely even do the Super Bowl. All right, so we'll see you tomorrow, 7 o'clock.
We'll see you then.
All right, good night, Joe. Goodbye, Joe. Have a good afternoon.
You too.
Bye, everybody.